The quiet following that moment was deafening. Fans watching the live couldn't believe what they had just heard. Images, audio notes, the type of proof that doesn't simply hint at disloyalty, but reveals it in unequivocal terms. Jim Jones did not display them yet, but just the fact that he indicated he possessed them was enough to send shockwaves across the hip-hop scene. People began scanning the internet, going through previous lives, watching old interviews, attempting to locate any hint that may back up Jim's assertions. It wasn't just rumor anymore. It was a mystery unraveling in real time with Jim Jones at the heart of it. People started coming in, demanding Camron answer, others naming Chrissy in every post they could locate. But from both of them, there was radio silence. There were no statements, denials, or confirmations, and the quiet further exacerbated the intrigue. One fan tweeted, "Why aren't they saying anything?" Another posted, "This got real too fast. I feel like we're seeing a complete." Jim Jones didn't back down as the relationship fell apart right in front of them. Later that night, he turned to Instagram and posted a dark screen with only one line of white text. "Loyalty over anything, even love within minutes." Blobs took it up. Screenshots of his story were everywhere, people guessing on what it meant. Was he done with Chrissy? Was he done with Camron? And most importantly, this was the beginning of a full-fledged breakdown between two of hip-hop's most legendary individuals behind the scenes. People close to Jim Jones allegedly stated he hadn't been sleeping much and had been pacing, thinking, repeating discussions over and over in his thoughts. And the most agonizing aspect was that he hadn't faced Chrissy openly or totally. According to someone close to the Jim Jones, had simply thrown clues, verbal and figurative, expecting she'd confess, but she never did. Instead, she maintained pretending everything was normal, which just drove him spiral more. And then came the surprise that no one anticipated coming. A strange anonymous user shared a screen recording from what looked to be a private event. Camron and Chrissy was in the same room, standing just a little too near. The audio was low and distorted, but you could definitely hear laughing, and then a moment when Camron leaned in to whisper something to her. Chrissy's smile stayed too long, the chemistry between them palpable, and the film went viral in minutes. Fans called it the Camp Chrissy clip and analyzed it. Frame after frame, Jim Jones did not explicitly mention the footage, but the next day he went live again. This time his tone was colder, less emotive, and more focused. "Just want the truth," he stated calmly. "No excuses, no lies, just the truth. That's all I ever wanted." He didn't mention Maines because he hadn't already told everyone. Understood who he was talking about. He terminated the love suddenly after only 5 minutes, leaving viewers with more questions than answers. Meanwhile, the strain on Chrissy was mounting, and she began turning off comments on her latest postings. She stopped going live, and even, more telling, she didn't show up to a scheduled public engagement she had been marketing for weeks. Fans saw instantly that concealing someone replied, "She knows Jim Jones ain't playing Camron." On the other hand, kept posting like nothing was going memes, throwback pics business, promotions. But if you look closely, some of his captions began to sound purposeful, such as one in which he wrote, "Sometimes silence is the loudest response." Fans viewed that as a clear strike at Jim Jones, implying Camron was not going to get into the turmoil publicly, but behind closed doors, things were boiling. More insiders began speaking out anonymously, and one stated that this wasn't the first time tensions have risen between Jim and Camron over trust difficulties. There has always been this underlying struggle between them. Source claimed they brothers, but they've had their conflicts, and a woman being in the middle simply made it worse. And just when things couldn't get much messier, someone close to Chrissy apparently released the text exchange. The conversations weren't graphic, but they indicated a very intimate, friendly tone between her and Cam. Nothing damning, but, again, the time and intensity all pointed to something bigger. And Jim Jones, well, he released a cryptic video to the tale of him strolling alone through the city at night with no captions and no music fans. Regarded it as an indication that he was distancing himself from everyone. By now, the narrative had become broader than anybody imagined. It wasn't only about Chrissy and Camron anymore, but about trust betrayal is what happens when personal relationships and public lives intersect in the most catastrophic way. Fans were divided, some supporting Jim Jones and others arguing he was overreacting without proof. But one thing was clear: the harm had been done. There were now whispers that Jim Jones had moved out temporarily, and some alleged he was living with a cousin in Harlem again. Nothing proved but the fact that those suspicions existed at the outset. Everything people started making timelines, comparing footage from previous years, examining instances where Chrissy and Camron had even the tiniest connection. Those who had never cared about Dipset drama were suddenly totally immersed, treating the tale like a reality show happening in real life. And just when everyone thought that during a separate, pre-recorded interview that aired just days after the podcast eruption, Jim Jones did something that sparked everything. When asked about the condition of loyalty in the industry, Jim Jones grinned and shook his head, saying, "I used to believe loyalty was real, but now I know better." The reporter tried to press him, but Jim Jones remained evasive. But the "I" connotation was evident. Meanwhile, Chrissy stayed silent, with no postings, stories, or appearances, and that silence became the loudest sound in the room. It wasn't denial, nor was it indignation. It was simply nothing, and at moments like that, followers began to question if quiet signaled guilt, or if she was just overwhelmed waiting for the storm to pass. Regardless, the internet wasn't every hour. Fresh jokes, edits, and ideas filled social media, but there was one moment that really rattled fans. A leaked audio tape appeared. Reportedly, it was Jim Jones chatting on the phone with someone from his inner circle in it. His voice was heavy, fatigued, and I just feel like I'm the last one to know he stated that everyone else saw it coming, except me. That one phrase went viral. Followers utilized it in comments, replies, even auto-tune remixes. It became the devastating soundbite of the entire tale. And even if the truth hadn't been completely exposed, the devastation, undeniable bonds were strained. Trust was destroyed. And Jim Jones, the man famed for his strength and commitment, suddenly appeared more human, more vulnerable than ever before. The city watched as fans studied every word and every post. One question hung in the air: would Jim forgive them, or was this betrayal too deep to ever come back? The internet is on fire after a stunning moment from a recent live podcast sent. Fans plunging. Jim Jones, clearly distraught and unable to hold back any longer, let free in What's Now. While tensions had been simmering behind the scenes for weeks, no one anticipated the Dipset rapper to utterly break down on TV during a gym. Jones revealed a bombshell that left viewers gasping, accusing Chrissy of treachery and hinting to a scandalous night involving none other than Camron. This revelation has sparked off a whirlwind of conjecture over social media, with followers urgently attempting to put together what actually happened. Was it just a mistake? Or is there more to this Camron and Chrissy relationship than anybody realized? Emotions running high, hints of secret talks and cryptic posts emerging. Everyone's eager to see what comes next as the podcast episode continues to go viral. Jim's words reverberate over the internet, raw, wounded, and saturated in anguish. The treachery he hinted at has awakened old scars, drawn in old pals, and now the whole the hip-hop world is watching, waiting, and wondering just how deep this narrative truly goes. The days that followed were dense with suspense, with no official pronouncements, no clarifications, just quiet. In that silence, fans produced their own truth threads on social media, evolved into numerous hypotheses. Some said Chrissy had been emotionally distant for months, while others claimed Camron had always nursed a hidden torch, for no one had the answers. But everyone had views, which just added gasoline to the already flaming fire. Then came an unexpected twist. Behind-the-scenes footage surfaced from a recent music video production, when both Camron and Chrissy were apparently present. Nevertheless, was grainy shot from a phone definitely taken without knowledge. but nevertheless showed them holding a private talk off to the side. The body language was personal, not necessarily loving, but too near. Chrissy leaned in as Cam mumbled something. She lightly stroked his arm before walking away. There was no sound or context, but for a public already ripe for scandal, it was enough. Of course, Jim Jones saw it. Later that night, he tweeted a single statement on Twitter. "I was always the last to know." Fans didn't need an explanation. They had already joined the dots within minutes. And "last to know" was trending not only in hashtags, but also altered clips, commentary vids. Even fan art, it had become the catchphrase of treachery. Rumors now spread like wildfire. One insider said Jim Jones had hired private investigator weeks ago when he first got suspicious. Another stated he had previously addressed Chrissy off camera and that it didn't go well. Nothing could be proven save the absence of denial. Chrissy's pals apparently tried to reach out to her, but she wasn't taking calls, and her social media stayed quiet, which was uncommon for someone who regularly posted. Camron, on the other hand, remained unmoved. He posted a series of images from a past tour, beaming with fans, flashing jewelry, and commenting ominous captions like, "Some tales don't require explaining people were divided." Was he trolling, dodging, or was this all simply a coincidence? Either way, his failure to refute or defend only intensified behind closed doors. Things were unraveling. Jim's inner group, which was formerly tight and devoted, was breaking. Some stood with him, while others secretly attempted to keep impartial, not wanting to be caught in the crossfire. One of Jim's lifelong pals allegedly told a blog that he never seen Jim Jones this sad, and that this betrayal impacted him differently. Since it came from both sides, his lady and in an unexpected appearance at a charity event, Jim's normally fiery temperament was significantly exhausted. When asked by a fan whether he was okay, he simply nodded and continued walking. No words or grin, just a heavy stillness, and then another blow. Someone from Chrissy's past coming forward, a former close friend who hadn't talked to the press in years and said she had previously observed an unpleasant incident. Chrissy and Camron had a private party in 2018. "I didn't think much of it then," she added, "but looking back now, it all makes sense again." Sturdy, but enough to keep the fire blazing. Jim Jones felt trapped finally. He broke his quiet, again in a new live broadcast, but this time he wasn't ranting or accusing. Instead, he was calm. "I ain't saying names," he started. "Give someone your allegiance and they play you like a fool. It changes you. It doesn't just hurt, it hardens you. I'm not the same man I was a month ago." Fans watched with their hearts in their throats. Jim Jones looked worn, like a man caring too much. For too long, his voice cracked only slightly when he continued. "Sometimes the people you love the most are the ones who hurt you the most." He finished the live after only 6 minutes, with no music or background noise, just him, his words, and a glance that expressed everything that moment. Became a turning moment. Supporters who had been split started rallying behind him. Defend Jim Jones at all costs. Trended celebs began like his tweets. Even some who had been silent started posting mysterious words of support. Energy had shifted. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was empathy. People saw a shattered guy, and it hit a chord. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Chrissy was apparently attempting to reach Jim Jones. A person close to the incident stated she had sent many messages and voice notes attempting to explain and calm things down. But Jim Jones wasn't responding since he wasn't ready. Said he needed space. Others felt he was stupid entirely. The reality only Jim Jones knew, and he wasn't telling the press. Began surrounding blogs and release timelines attempting to identify when the alleged affair may have started. Previous interviews were reread and studied for hints. Occasions where Chrissy smiled at Camron just a bit too long. When Jim's body language appeared strange, it became a digital inquiry, fans playing detectives as emotions remained raw cams. Quiet began to work against him, where earlier it appeared to be indifference. Now it looked like avoidance supporters started demanding answers. You owe Jim the truth. One tweet read another said, "Real men don't hide, they speak up." But Cam didn't say anything. Instead, he posted throwback photo of him and Jim from the early Dipset days, captioned, "Brothers fight, but blood is thicker." It was the first time he recognized the problem indirectly. At least that post provoked even more discord. Was it an olive branch? Was he dodging or attempting to make peace? Fans were split, and Jim didn't participate. He didn't repost it, didn't like it, and didn't react. He uploaded another mysterious narrative, this time with the remark, "Sometimes the relationship you believed was indestructible was already shattered. You simply didn't realize it." And then out of nowhere, a bombshell email emerged. It was supposedly between Chrissy and close friend David months ago. In it, she lamented about feeling emotionally estranged with Jim and revealed Camron understands her in ways Jim never did. The email was not authenticated, but it circulated. Like wildfire, people felt betrayed all over again. Even those who had tried to support Chrissy began to question everything. Jim once again opted not to reply immediately, but that night he tweeted an old film from a performance showing him and Camron singing on stage, arms around each other, laughing, with the caption, "Those were the days." That one message was like a funeral for a friendship. Fans read it as a quiet farewell. As for Chrissy, the strain grew too much late one night. She posted a black screen to her account with the words, "Nobody really knows the whole story, you all. Just see the pieces, no explanation, no follow-up," yet fans were relentless, flooding her DMs. Her words demanded replies. Some gave sympathy, some called her out. The emotions were passionate and split, and somewhere in all amid this upheaval, one reality remained undeniable. Trust, once lost, is very hard to pull back together. Whether the affair happened or the rumors were. Exaggerated, one thing was obvious: Jim felt deceived. And once that emotion settles in, it is impossible to remove the harm had been done, whether they would recover. From it was still a mystery, and for fans watching anxiously checking pages for updates. It was the most dramatic saga they'd watched in a long time as the narrative proceeded to spiral. Tension between Jim Jones, Christy, and Camron reached a boiling point that even long-standing fans didn't see coming. With each passing day, more individuals pulled into the emotional storm. Even those who didn't generally follow hip-hop drama found themselves enthralled by the unfolding issue. It had gone beyond entertainment and seemed personal to many. Like witnessing a family come apart in real time, Jim's manner altered further. He stopped sharing selfies, stopped promoting his projects, and even dropped out of 2 scheduled appearances. Close to him stated he wasn't eating correctly, wasn't sleeping much, and had entirely cut down connection with everyone save his mother and a few boyhood acquaintances, one of whom said he'd been spending his evenings traveling around city attempting to clear his thoughts, blaring old Dipset music that previously meant togetherness and camaraderie, while Chrissy's silence continued to scream louder than anything she was ever seen saying. Briefly outside a cafe in Harlem, wearing enormous sunglasses and a sweatshirt pulled low, paparazzi managed to get a few blurry images, and while she didn't say anything, her countenance appeared heavy, as if she was carrying more than just remorse. Rumors circulated that she had been told by her team to stay low until everything calmed down, but fans weren't letting anything cool. In fact, the idea only heightened when someone dredged up an old interview from years ago, in which Chrissy described Camron as relatives, now fans. We were twisting that statement, calling it a code term, saying it had all been in plain sight the whole time. Then came the podcast, which was intended to be a relaxed, low-key episode of a program Jim had agreed to participate on months previously. The hosts were acquaintances, and the ambiance relaxed. But what transpired live on television would erupt over the internet within minutes. Jim walked in quiet and somber. He wore dark. He had his hood up and rarely smiled for the first 20 minutes. The discussion was light, chatting about music memories and previous performances. But suddenly the presenter casually talked about loyalty, citing how the profession may sometimes test friendships. Jim paused for a long time before leaning forward, taking off his spectacles and looking directly into the camera. Loyalty ain't what it used to be, he stated in a quiet but steady voice. People will grin in your face, call you brother, and behind closed doors. Do you filthy, and the worst thing is you don't even find out from them, you find out from the streets. The host became silent, and no one dared to contradict Jim. He wasn't screaming or furious on the surface, but something in his tone made it feel colder than if he'd yelled. He went on, imagine sharing your hopes, home, and heart with someone, putting everything together, only to wake up one day and realize it was all a setup, treachery disguised. The chat section of the podcast blew up instantly. Comments poured in faster than the host could even read. Fans type things like, we're talking about Chrissy and Camron, which is heartbreaking, while others begged him to clarify. Jim did not need to name names, everyone already knew. One of the presenters tried to turn gears by asking whether he believed there was any prospect of reconciliation. Jim didn't hesitate. Nah, he stated, some things break too deep and I don't want apologies. I want peace. And peace does not come from individuals who lie to you with a straight face. Nutsy. When the live-ended footage of the program circulated like wildfire, fans made compilations, response videos, and even heartfelt tributes. Jim's loyalty and anguish once again. Protect Jin at all costs trended online, and for the first time, even those who had backed Chrissy began to reevaluate their attitude. But things weren't done yet. Just hours after the podcast aired, an audio recording surfaced apparently made during a private altercation between Jim and Chrissy weeks earlier. The film contained voices that sounded exactly similar. Chrissy could be heard stating, I never intended for things to go that far. And Jim responded, but you allowed him to get that close. The audio cuts out. After a few seconds, but that was all it needed to fuel the flames. Chrissy's team instantly claimed the footage was authentic, saying it had been altered, but many fans weren't buying it. The voices were unmistakable, and the emotions were too vivid to be manufactured. Whether legitimate or not, the public had already made their decision, and Camron, who remained mute, became the next target. Thousands swarmed his last post demanding he speak something, and the pressure increased until eventually Camron attached a video to the article, not a statement, just him in the studio bobbing his head to an unreleased song with lyrics that stated, "Never trust a heart that flinches when it's time to ride." It was vague, yet fans saw this as a jab. Another indirect response in a saga already. Packed with shadows and half-truths, Chrissy unexpectedly broke her quiet. In a shaky live broadcast, she appeared without makeup, with weary eyes and voice. Trembling, I know there's been a lot said, and I know people have made up their minds. About me, she began. But not everything you see is the complete story. She didn't outright reject the reports, but she did explain, people grow apart sometimes. Connections alter, and what you thought is benign might evolve into anything. You cannot explain. Her words were unclear, but the feelings underlying them were genuine. She didn't weep, although her voice cracked more than time. She finished the live by stating, I love Jim with all of my heart. I never intended to harm him, but I can't pretend. Things were great even when they weren't. The internet exploded again. Some admirers sympathized with her, stating her live felt honest. Some accused her of diverting blame, and one remark stated she still didn't dispute it. She's just spouting the narrative. Another read, this ain't an apology, is a cover-up. Jim once again remained mute. No post, no comment. Just quiet, although individuals close to him claimed he watched the live. They stated he sat through the whole event without speaking a thing, and when it finished, he simply got up and strolled outdoors for almost an hour without a phone or music. Just him. Camron was apparently unconcerned, according to sources. He felt the entire matter overdone and had no plans to clarify anything. felt the truth would ultimately disclose itself, and until then, he wasn't going to stoke the fire, but fans weren't letting it go. A movement began with a small group of gym supporters arranged a loyalty walk in Harlem with placards that read, "Real ones don't cheat," and "Truth above celebrity." It was hardly a large demonstration, but it generated headlines and reminded everyone how the public's emotional commitment had grown significantly. But one issue remained unanswered. Would Jim ever forgive them? Because while the internet feeds on drama and spectacle, what made this tale stand out was Jim, Chrissy, and Camron were more than simply names. Family is formed on years of shared dreams, love, and commitment. And when foundation splits, the pieces don't fall silently. They shatter, and the sound. While viewers were still understanding Chrissy's emotional life, another twist fell like a bomb. An anonymous tipster contacted a well-known gossip publication, claiming to have genuine screenshots of texts exchanged. Chrissy and Camron exchanged texts that indicated to anything more than simply friendship. Within hours of the blog, uploaded a hazy image of what looked to be Cam stating, "You know it. It was never simply a feeling between us." Chrissy responded, "Stop, we swore we wouldn't talk about that night again." The internet lost its mind. Fans were yelling in amazement, and even celebrities started. Responding subtly on their own channels, one rapper wrote a cryptic tweet stating, "Some people break bread, others break trust." A reality TV personality shared a throwback photo of Jim and Chrissy with a comment that reads, "Damn, never imagined I would see the day." Although the screenshots couldn't be validated and the blog itself appended a disclaimer, damage had already been done, and perception had changed what was once merely gossip into now being considered as definite treachery by the public. The notion of that night has become a riddle for admirers. Jim couldn't quit guessing about what had happened. Was it recent? Jim did not answer for the third time after he was made aware of it before it became public. Directly, but he contributed. A photo to the narrative that conveyed much in one image, of him peering at the horizon, captioned, "Angerty doesn't lie." It was subtle, but cutting. Chrissy was seen leaving a restaurant on the same night, which was both lyrical and terrible. With a longtime acquaintance, photographers flooded her with questions about the screenshots. Her reaction was quick and icy. "Believe what you want. I know my reality." Some took while some saw it as disobedience. Others saw it as a confession cloaked in pride. Camron remained constant and unconcerned in public, but visibly more low-key online. He didn't post for 2 days straight, and when he eventually did, it was merely a dark screen with the words, "Let the loud ones speak." The division among supporters has never been so acute. Team Jim fans were gathering behind him more than ever, sharing old memories of him and Chrissy from their reality show days, tagging them with, "He deserves better." On the other hand, a smaller yet loud group backed Chrissy, claiming that people change and relationships fall apart for many. However, what actually elevated the drama was the leaked voice note. Apparently recorded by a mutual acquaintance who was present during a private quarrel, the voice message comprised a female voice, thought to be Chrissy weeping and stating, "I didn't plan to fall love him. It just occurred. It's meant to be nothing." The tape lasted little more than 20 seconds, although sent shockwaves through the fan community. Folks now had what felt like evidence that the betrayal wasn't simply emotional, passionate, and maybe lasting for Jim. It wasn't simply about fidelity amongst friends, but about a love he had based his whole adult life upon, and now it appeared to have crushed by secrets and blunders. Jim eventually broke his silence the next day. In a more personal way, not through a podcast or an indirect post, he published a video on his own page that appeared to be unpolished, was shot on a phone, with Jim sitting on a couch, eyes sleepy, speech calm yet heavy. "Look," he started. "I know, you've been watching this like it's a show, but it's not. No episode, this is my actual life. I'm not here to point fingers or hurl mud. I simply wanted to express that I'm suffering, Not because of the blogs, but because of because someone I gave my entire heart to wasn't honest with me. He hesitated. I loved her and still do, but love isn't enough when it comes to trust. Is gone. And to see the people around me, people I considered family, standing mute. While I sink, which hurts more than anything, the internet remained still. The video was honest, full of evident emotion, and it broke down even the most dubious viewers' remarks, with thousands sending support, love, and virtual consolation, including celebrities, began reposting the video with messages of solidarity. Some claimed he was brave for opening out, while others saw a guy. Chrissy did not publicly reply to the video, however. According to intimate sources, she viewed it and burst into tears when one insider revealed, a gossip source, she didn't expect him to talk like that. She imagined he'd lash out, become cold. But seeing him wounded like that, it destroyed her. There was no official apology from her, no public attempt. In a final surprise that no one imagined, Jim's his mother, who was always loud and interested in his life, opted to go live. In a rare moment, she addressed the controversy directly. My son's been through too much to get played like this, she added. Established a legacy and committed his heart to a woman he thought would ride with him till the end, and to witness this unfold, not only behind closed doors, but in front of the entire world. It's filthy. I don't care what past you've got, true love, don't do this. Her words kindled in a new wave of feedback. Admirers praised her honesty, while others criticized the family. To keep things quiet, but it was too late. The narrative had already written itself throughout the internet, blazed in the minds of millions. And just when many believed the drama had, rumors began to circulate that Chrissy and Camron had been sighted alone on a private rooftop. There are no images of the lounge in Brooklyn, only word of mouth from two persons who claim to have been there. Could not be proven. It was all fans needed to run wild with ideas. Some believed the rumors immediately, while others, they dubbed it a smear campaign. But Jim didn't care because he had already. After making up his choice, he unfollowed Chrissy and Camron on all networks and removed previous postings and wrote one final remark to his narrative. Closure comes in quiet. As the dust began to settle, the quiet was more audible than any of the previous charges or admissions. The future of their ties remained uncertain. Would Chrissy ever disclose her complete truth? Will Camron take accountability? Or deny everything till the end? And would Jim ever be able to completely move on from the treachery that had ruined not just his love, but his faith in those closest to him? Only time would tell. But one thing was clear. The friendship that Jim, Chrissy, and Camron shared would never be the same again. Been tried in the most cruel way possible, whether it was love, loyalty, or heritage. Something had been lost that may never be found again. And just like that, what began as murmurs erupted into a full-blown storm that rocked the internet to its core. Hearts were destroyed. Alliances were fractured. Fans were left wondering all they thought they knew about Jim Jones, Chrissy, and Camron. This wasn't only the drama, was a thorough unraveling of years of devotion, love, and public image. Jim's silence shouted louder than any words ever could. Chrissy's unwillingness to clarify simply added to the uncertainty. Camron's calm indifference may have been the most powerful message of all, but now the question is, what do you feel truly happened between Chrissy and Camron that night? Was it merely a moment of weakness, or something that had been festering beneath the surface for years? Did Jin know more than he let on, or was he actually blindsided like the rest of us? Will any of them ever reveal their complete truth? On die. The record, or is this one of those stories that will remain cloaked in silence forever? We want to hear from you. Drop your opinions in the comments below. Which side are you on? Do you believe Chrissy was misunderstood? Or was this treachery as obvious as day? And what about Camron? Did he break a limit that never be uncrossed? And remember to press that like button if you were caught by this incredible roller coaster of emotions. Subscribe to the channel if you want more crazy breaking drama like this, then touch that notification bell to never miss another explosive update. Because believe us, this tale is far from overstay tuned and stay filthy.